quite interesting to me. When I was checking, I was like, wait, what?
Well, I mean, it's technically speaking, it's his land.
So exactly. That's what I wanted to ask. Is it his land or the land that belongs to the Zulu people in KZN? Or the land belongs to him specifically? That's what I want.
Hey, okay, look. So, how it's a bit difficult to distinguish it, but okay, how it works is that generally we say the land belongs to the king, but obviously the king is not the king without the people. So technically the land belongs to the people.
Microphone check. 1, 2. What is this?
What is this actually?
Yes.
That's a very good question. Good place to start.
Yes. Actually, well, not because you ran away from No Hidden Agenda podcast.
Let me do the honors.
I think, let's give you the reins.
No problem. So, welcome to a rebranded podcast for first-time listeners. This is the Business Agenda podcast, same umbrella under NHA Media, which is No Hidden Agenda Media. For regular listeners, you'll be familiar with Property Corner and other podcasts, the No Hidden Agenda podcast, the Hip Hop Business podcast. So what we decided to do as a team is rebrand Property Corner under the auspices of giving you more content that is business related, not just specific to property, but we obviously will be still covering property. You know, I think it was a decision made to make it more holistic, and I think in terms of the plans we have for this particular podcast, great stuff for you guys to look forward to. So yeah, so for those
I'm a bit sad, man. I kind of like that name, Property Corner. Retiring it kind of sucks.
Yeah, to put the jazz in the rafters, because it was actually, it's funny when I figure out Property Corner, I was like, oh, property and corner is here.
Yeah.
Like oh, it is a great idea, but but I think obviously for the sake of moving in a different direction, obviously we really want to do a business oriented podcast under the same way we do all our podcasts, where it's conversations, having guests and sharing experiences which are relatable to all our listeners. And then if you are a first-time listener, my name is Cash. Background is marketing headhunting ops consultant. We have the rest of the team, Itumeleng and Tiza Tabo. I'll let them introduce themselves, and today we have our guest, Mr. Nathi, not Nathi Ntshangase, but Mr. Nathi himself. He'll give you a bit of his background and how he's doing. So yeah, gentlemen, how are you guys doing?
I'm all good, right?
You're good?
I mean, like, no business agenda.
Yeah, you're like...
But who came up with this name? Between the two of you, someone came up with this name.
I can't remember,
it was some sort of a drinking session.
Yeah. The best ideas normally come under the influence, as they say, over rise on weekends. You know, you always hear these tech creators, you know, I was just having friends over for drinks and this idea for an app. So yeah, here we are, Business Agenda. We keep the agenda part under the umbrella of the media group, so you know it works, and I'm really keen obviously to get started. And for those of you who have been nagging for visuals, so we thought out the gate, this is what we're starting with, YouTube content.
Issue.
Yeah, some of you are.
I think Nathi is bringing us the luck, man.
Most definitely.
You should have came last year. You see, we would have had visuals from last year. We've been trying to get Nathi last year, but I think it was clearly a busy year, right?
Yeah, you know, 2021 was a very up and down kind of year. Coming out of COVID, trying to you know restabilize things, and but I think the timing is good.
The timing is good.
We do it now. I think even on the subject matter, I over the past couple of months, I have
picked up a bit of experience.
I've picked up some experiences that that I can share.
Yes. Okay. Cool. Yeah. I mean, I think we're gonna have, this is episode 8. We continue from wherever we left the Property Corner. So this is episode 8. On the previous episode, we're having a conversation about land in urban areas for people that kind of want to buy land and build. And then we're getting a couple of questions around, Emakaya. I don't know if I should call it traditional land. It sounds bad saying traditional land.
Traditional as opposed to rural, which is now more politically correct.
Yeah.
But I think what's fun is if you look at some of the legislation, it's still referred to as, some cases they say traditional, some they'll say rural, and I think it's funny when people speak of land, people just think of land, but there's actually quite different demarcations of the types of land. So I think you can get away with traditional, because most people will know exactly what you speak to when you're speaking to traditional land.
Because rural doesn't sound correct.
Yeah, it's
I suppose maybe it follows the custodians, right?
Yes.
Because generally this is administered by kings,
chiefs as well.
chiefs. I mean,
Traditional, and then I think traditional leaders are they're probably called chiefs.
Yes.
Traditional land. Yeah. So I think
typically in any scenario, if it's not municipal land, it's traditional land. That's really what it is. It's rural by the broad definition, but obviously what separates it from municipal land is that it's under the king or the chief or traditional tribal authority, whatever the name is.
Yeah, because I think actually in South Africa, I think we have we probably have in Northwest, right? What's it?
The Bafokeng.
Yeah, Bafokeng, right? There's probably a couple of stuff there. We have in Limpopo as well. I'm not sure about Mpumalanga, but I know KZN and Eastern Cape as well.
Yeah. Wait. Bafokeng, where's Bakwena?
Yeah, it's all in Northwest.
There's two of them.
Potentially.
I know the one Bafokeng.
Yeah, then there's Bakwena also.
There's also Bakwena.
Okay.
Yeah. No, I'm saying there's traditional land in Northwest that's being administered. That's kind of known. Similarly to Limpopo, we know Venda, we know Polokwane, those areas. KZN obviously is one of the big ones, and then Eastern Cape. You know what I mean? I'm not sure about Free State and Northern Cape, but potentially there's something there as well. So I think, I mean, in part of our research, we actually tried to hone down to KZN. Specifically because I think it's the one that's commonly known to the majority of people via the Ingona Trust process that obviously happened, which was quite interesting, by the way. You know, I think considering it actually started in 1994, you know, through those negotiations, and when it happened, I was wondering, like, do you guys sort of know the background around it? You know, is it because the state didn't want to take it? Or do you think the Zulu king at the time thought it just best to be under their
stewardship?
Yeah,
that they manage it.
I think it was a political decision more than anything. If you recall, KwaZulu was a homeland, under the apartheid system, and so the royal house and the king and the chiefs that work under him were quite central to the leadership, and that is through Ntshangase, who was the political head, but even his party is still based a lot on Zulu tradition, and so it's quite close. And at the time it was a question of what do we get as the Zulu kingdom if we incorporate back into the country, because technically speaking KZN was a separate country, the other homelands. So as part of that, but also on top of that, there was the political violence in the background as well, that sort of pushed the hand of the SA government to say, look, you've got to give the king the control of the land. So essentially, how they modeled it was that obviously there's land that's controlled by the municipalities and that, but then the minute you step outside of municipal bounds, then that land is under Ingonyama Trust, where the king is the main beneficiary, and then there's a board of trustees.
That was quite interesting to me. When I was checking, I was like, wait, what?
Well, I mean, it's technically speaking, it's his land.
So exactly. Yeah. That's what I wanted to ask. Is it his land or the land that belongs to the Zulu people in KZN? Or the land belongs to him specifically? That's what I want.
Hey, okay, look. So, how it's a bit difficult to distinguish it, but okay. How it works is that generally we say the land belongs to the king, but obviously the king is not the king without the people. So technically the land belongs to the people. It's just that the king is the custodian that looks after it. So I think it also assists just to structure access to the land, and not have kings and like small chiefs everywhere doing their own thing. It's a bit more structured, especially for the more profitable parts of the land. You know, you've got quite a structured process for the access to it. But yeah, the land is the king's.
Yeah, and I suppose maybe if you ask in technical terms, it actually belongs to the trust, so to speak. So I think that's why the trust is there for sure. So yeah, maybe just tell us, man. We'll get to the finance parts and stuff just down the line. Have you kind of went through this process of actually trying to get that land, and how does it work? You know what I mean? Because I think for most people, I don't know if they know, but I would assume you need to be from KZN. If you're in KZN, you probably need to be Zulu, I assume, or it can be any resident. It doesn't matter whether you're Zulu or not. Have you been through that process?
Because I was gonna add on to that, like, if my parents, like now, Nathi, you are from KZN, your kid is born here, is he also a beneficiary to that land as well? How does it benefit? How does it benefit people? How does it benefit the people? And yes, if my dad is from there, will I benefit from that land? But I was born in Gauteng.
Okay, so maybe let's start it this way and say there's two ways you can access the land, right? There's one where you inherit it through your family. Maybe your family is already based in the area, or that's the land that your family is already occupying, and you start to utilize it through family agreements or whatever, right? That's the one way. The second part is effectively buying the land. Okay. Now that's the tricky one, because buying the land again can happen in two ways. It's either you buy from a family that is already sitting somewhere, or you're buying communal land, you know, from the chief. Yes. So it's either you're buying family occupied land or previously occupied, because some places they were occupied some decades ago, but even though people have moved away, they still have ownership of that, you know. So it's either you're buying it from those people, or you're buying communal land from the chief. So that's really how it works. And in terms of whether you are Zulu or what, I don't think that really is factored. You know, in principle, it would be nice to say it. But the reality is, if you have money, you can pay for it. Yeah, honestly. Yeah. I mean, at home, there's white people that live among us there. Because where I'm from Tuba, but on the side that's on the side that's by St. Lucia, the wetland park and whatever. Yes. So there's quite a lot of white people that live in St. Lucia, and some of them have actually moved out of there because they're paying rates, whatever, and they've moved to live with us. They found a section where the richer of us. There's a north there now that has been formed, and white people live there. They've got businesses there. I know there's a guy. One guy does tourists tours and stuff. The other one does boats. The other one has a tire repair thing. So there's quite a lot of them.
I was gonna ask that. So do those people, do they get taxed in a way? Do they give something to the chief or the king for making the land work? Because at the end of the day, that land belongs to the king, right?
Yeah. So you only pay once when you buy the land initially. You're not going to pay anything on an annual basis or on a what. No. If you're buying it from the local chief, because like I said earlier, that the more profitable parts of the land are controlled by Ingonyama strictly. Okay. So but
mining stuff.
Yeah, so if you're talking mining, farming, those areas, you're gonna have to go to Ingonyama.